Which now brings us to a man who, Sarah, if he ever wants to visit Baltimore, I know he lives out on the West Coast, if I'm not mistaken, but should he want to visit Baltimore, I don't envision him ever paying for a drink or a meal ever again based on what he's been up to and the way that he has ingratiated himself to this fan base. And that individual that I'm speaking of is one Chris Broussard. Take it away.
Oh, we got to try to DM him because whether he's in Baltimore or not, we got to get him on this show. So, yes, this segment was absolutely insane. We'll start with Kevin Wild. So what the question was posed to, I got 2 clips. The question was posed to the panel, who is under duress the most on Sunday? And obviously they're talking about players. But Kevin Wild turned it around and said, nah, it's not going to be a player that's under duress. You got it all mixed up.
I am putting Lamar critics on the bud list. Now, all year, any spectacular Lamar performance could be spoiled with a sprinkle of, I need to see it in the playoffs. 5 touchdowns against the Bucks. Can he do it in the playoffs? Passer rating of 158 against the Broncos. But can he do it in the playoffs? 2 touchdowns and 81 yards rushing last week against the Steelers. Yeah, but can he do it in the playoffs? That was the playoffs. It's a moving target of criticism, not totally without merit, but a little bit. This Monday, Brew, it will be Lamar's critics, not Lamar, who is officially under duress.
Well, let's just stop fooling around. The critic we're talking about is Nick Wright. He's sitting right there to the right of you, Wilds. And I've been trying my darndest. I presented statistics. They've gone head to head. And Lamar has been better. He's got the hardware. He might be winning his 3rd MVP, and Nick still will not listen to my logic. So I had to bring in some reinforcements. I had to make some calls down to Baltimore and get my girl Snoop in the house to take care of this stuff.
Because, Nick, you playing games, man.
That's
know
right.
What it is, man.
Okay, we're going to get back to Snoop in just a second. I needed to cut it here for so many reasons. We got to back up here for a second. First of all, Kevin Wilde's being like, no, it's not a player that's under duress. It's going to be Lamar's critics that are under duress. That's how much Kevin believes in Lamar this Sunday going up against the other MVP frontrunner. Then on top of it, he is speaking to what has been going on for years, which is that anytime Lamar has success, people try to rob it of him. They try to rob it of him. Oh, but can you do it in the playoffs? And it cracked me up when he said what he did against the Steelers just last week. And they're like, yeah, but he can do it in the playoffs. And Kevin's like, that was in the playoffs. And Bobby, this is massive. They're about to play this, a reaction to this stat that I've got up right here. Oh my gosh, Lamar Jackson's playoff record, his first 4 games versus his last 3 games. Okay. His first 4 games in the playoffs, he was 1-3. We know how it started. And boy, was he young. Most people were still in college by the time Lamar led the Ravens to the playoffs. When, by the way, Joe Flacco, the veteran, and this is no hate to Joe, he brought us the Super Bowl, but that year, facts are just facts, they were not having a winning season. And when Joe was injured, Lamar came in, and I believe they won like 6 or 7 in a row to make the playoffs, okay? Most guys that age were still in college, and Lamar came out and did that, but 1-3. Last 3 playoff games, 2-1. Passer rating in his first 4 playoff games, 68.3. Bobby, it goes through the roof the last 3 games, 103.1. Completion percentage, 55.9 versus 65. Bobby, it was a whole 10 percentage points higher. And then the touchdown to interception ratio in his first 4 games, 3 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. Look how clean this is the last 3. 5 touchdowns to 1 interception. Bobby, young Lamar Jackson versus veteran Lamar Jackson is not the same thing. Lamar Jackson under Greg Roman is not the same thing as Lamar Jackson with Todd Monken. Lamar Jackson with legitimate receiving targets is not the same thing as Lamar Jackson being young with not great receiving targets. He's a different man now. And that's why I think Kevin is absolutely right, where it's just like, you guys are going to be under duress, not Lamar.
You think about that left-hand side of the column. We're talking about a rookie season, to your point, wild card loss to the Chargers, right? In a game that they didn't even, many believe throughout the NFL, they were shocked that they were there, right? That he went 6-1 down the stretch to even qualify them for that opportunity. That's one. Two, the clunker the following season in the divisional round after going 14-2, big Truz, bursting onto the NFL scene, first MVP season, so on and so forth, and coming out flat against Tennessee. And then from there, I believe it was another game against Tennessee, and then the divisional round loss to Buffalo where he was knocked out and concussed. Right? Those are those first four games, if memory serves. The last three have been, of course, this past week against Pittsburgh, his greatest playoff game so far, albeit a small sample size. The AFC Championship last January, and that stellar second half the week prior in the divisional round against Houston. So this just, again, speaks to what you and I have been yelling from the rooftops for what feels like weeks. It really hasn't been that long. It's, what have you done for me lately, Lamar? We're not going to hang our hat on the left-hand side of that column, and I don't think Chris Broussard is either.
No, and I cut this part out. We're going to get back to Snoop and all that, but win 70% of career stats. Look at the guys that Lamar is with. Mahomes, another stratosphere. He's got an 800 career record. Tom Brady, 75. Roger Staubach, 73. Then there's Lamar, 72.3%. And then Joe Montana after him at 71.1%. Like, he's among the greats. So now at this point, Bobby, we got to get back to the actual audio of what's going on in here, because now that Snoop is out there, things change a little bit here. They go right after Nick, as they keep calling him Nick wrong. And Snoop is absolutely cracking me up. Here we go.
The playoffs, niggas, look at his record in the playoffs. Man. He was a young boy back then.
He was young.
Young boy. In the last 4 years.
You see the stats.
Look at it. 2-1. Great passer rating. 5 touchdowns, 1 pick, 7 touchdowns overall, including runs. I mean, again, he is a changed man.
Man, listen, man. Nick, when we win this Super Bowl, we going down New Orleans. You know what I mean? Because my brother, man, told me that you a hater. You know what I mean? You always hating on Lamar. When we win this Super Bowl, we go down here, you got to get your gangsters. Shawnee got to do your hair, man. Like, man, Lamar, you got to get your gangsters.
Finally, look, we don't have to go to ancient history and all that stuff. This was this year. They played in week 4.
Yeah, you see
and
that?
Lamar and them ran all over.
You see that? Your boy Allen ain't doing nothing, man. You got to be with Lamar. Come on, man.
Snoop, when they played, in fact, it was in Baltimore. The Ravens invited the Bills into their house.
He always invite people. Come on down. Man.
They sent them into the kitchen and said, what? Get me
a sandwich
with some
chips.
And we gonna wash it down with some
a soda pop.
That's right.
So, Sarah.
Oh, my gosh. The fact that Chris Broussard pulled that off when he always says those classic lines, soda chip, pop, and all that. But he also says, put on the TV, The Wire. And then he gets Snoop. It can't get any better than this. Go ahead, Bobby. What were you going to say?
I'm just, for those keeping score, in under a calendar week, Chris Broussard has pulled off an a cappella group that essentially proved his point and went after Nick Wright in a playful way. And now he brings in the legendary from The Wire, Snoop, to also help him reaffirm his point, also going up against Nick Wright, all in 1 week's time. Chris is a lot. Look, I can't speak to this because I'm not a native Baltimorean. I think I can speak for a lot of you along these lines. It seems to me like he's welcome in this town anytime, any day.
Oh, we've got it. We got to get his number. We got to have him on here. And we got to get ourselves some purple robes, and all of us can be wearing it with our shades. If the Ravens win, on Sunday. We've got to make this happen. He's
Sarah, I'm
got to
gonna tell you
do
this
his
right
bit
now.
on the vault.
I'm gonna promise you something right now. If they make this run,
yeah.
I will put on what's the right word for this? I will put on a vicious guest booking hat and
Yes.
exhaust all possible resources to ensure that we get him.
We got to get him.
All right.
I want to say it, all of us together. Soda pop, sandwich. Anyway, back to Snoop. She was phenomenal, and it made me this morning want to go read a little bit more about her. I obviously knew she's from Baltimore. I knew that she was on The Wire. I knew all that, but I didn't know her whole background. And when I tell you she had a tough childhood, and has obviously turned things around. But so when I was reading this, what's his name? Stephen King, horror writer, right? Novels. He called her the most terrifying female villain in all of TV. Stephen King said, and I bring that up because I didn't bring it in as an audio because it doesn't do it justice. They allowed Nick Wright to try to defend himself. And if you thought that Tannenbaum looked nervous next to Bart Scott, and I'm sure this was all a bit that they pre-planned, but he starts to be able to defend himself. And as he's looking into the camera zoomed up on him. Suddenly the camera zooms out, and Nick Wright is sitting next to, I'm forgetting his name, but he's next to another panelist. And she comes up and she pushes him to the side. She's like, "Excuse me." And as Nick Wright is talking, she comes on here. I've at least got a screen grab of it, and starts petting his hair, just like petting it. And he's like as awkward as can be, trying to finish his sentences. And then she brings back the line that she had used before. "Come on, Nick, we got to get you some little gangsters in here. We got to get you some little gangsters. Want to get some cornrows in there." And like, he turns his back to her and she just keeps petting him. And it's just like, what is she going to do to me? I don't know what she's going to do to me. Maybe flashbacks to like her going and buying a nail gun at the hardware store. I mean, who knows in those movies, but the entire bit was so well done from start to finish. Nick playing into it, Snoop playing into it, Chris, Kevin Wilde's like hands down. Yeah, I mean, you brought in a great clips earlier, but that was more raw and real. This was just a good bit that they put on.
Oh, this screenshot, I think, will live in infamy right here. Look at these two. She absolutely nailed it. And Chris Broussard, having pulled all these strings over not just the last week, too. You think about the bit when you talk about television and the script that these folks follow and the way they produce television on a daily basis. This goes back for months. I'm pretty sure Chris chose the Ravens back-to-back years. He was heartbroken like everybody was last year. And then he came back on this revenge tour. And so this has been, for those who follow along with this show, I'm not telling you guys anything you aren't already aware of, but this has been months in the making. And so the fact that he's culminating it this way, it's just highly entertaining. And we're going to try our best, especially if the Ravens win, to get Broussard inside the vault, because I think he would make for a really fun conversation.
It needs to happen.
Yeah.
We got to get it done.